how's it going, man?
Whoa. That girl so scandalous, and you know another nigga couldn't handle it. So you shaking that thing like who's the ish, with the look in your eyes so devilish. You like to dance all the hip-hop spots, and you cruise to the grooves like an acrobat. Not just her bench, she liked to pop, cause she was living la vida loca. She had dumps like a truck, thighs like what, baby move your butt. I think I'll sing it again. She had dumps like a truck, thighs like what, all night long. Let me see that thong. That thong. Like it when the beat go. Like it when the beat go.
All right. Welcome to the Endgame. Welcome to the game.
It's just another Taco Tuesday. Whoa.
Blow card.
Blow card. It's a hell of a town. Blow card. So another Taco Tuesday for real, though, huh?
It's another, well, Taco Wednesday, Taco Tuesday, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like,
it's tacos every day. It's tacos every day.
I mean, it is truly funny to watch this, you know? I mean, not like that. Not funny, obviously, how it's negatively impacting many people, but it's fucking ridiculous how it's like clockwork. Every Tuesday, there's some fucking, announcement where it build up and then fold and a concession. And I don't know. It's ridiculous. And there's like narratives for everyone to sink their teeth into.
Mm-hmm.
And really, this is, in my opinion, this seems like whatever. This is all part of the next phase. Like I've said before, the next, like COVID 2.0, the next phase of the Great Reset, and major disruptions in energy markets and reshuffling of the deck and all this bullshit that is gonna. I mean, I guess in some ways, it's like the U.S. is power and that mystique of invincibility is just fucking gone now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just funny that you have this like whatever jackass, carnival barker who tries to present and has such power, and it's like he's the face of the collapse of that mystique. And so many people I know who follow, from uninformed to informed, but are still, for whatever reason, they're like still are addicted to the empire propaganda. They're like, no, things are going well. What are you talking about? Like, this is going well. And yeah, it's fucking just retards all the way down.
Well, and that's like, what else is the appeal of being a billionaire or something? You don't have to give a shit what's happening in the rest of the world. It's like, I'm on my yacht in the middle of the Atlantic. Like, kiss my ass. Like, I don't care.
And it's interesting. I don't know if you so that Tucker Carlson thing where he's basically saying that the attacks on the UAE were an Israeli false flag pretending to frame it on Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And which I sent you that that Zero Hedge clip where it was basically a form of corroboration of that, except of course it doesn't put it that way.
Yeah.
It just says, you know, Iran attacks UAE, but Iran denies that it was responsible for those attacks.
Right.
And it's like, and again, that's why, like, I feel like the empire just has compartmentalized itself in different nation states, and each nation state has its own function or purpose serving the empire. And it seems like Israel, and not only Israel, because I do think it's ultimately Israel, America, and UK it's ultimately the same empire. And it's not just them, but they're, you know, them and Switzerland more quietly are all more at the big boy table, where all the other Western countries are just like, can we have a vote too? And it's like, no, shut up. Okay, we'll just do whatever you say and we'll totally destroy ourselves. We're not sure why, but we have to do what we're doing to destroy and undermine the well-being of our citizens. And everyone has to be like, why is the government and the politicians so bad? And like, there was some thing that just came out I saw that was of the European nations that have monarchs, like every single nation responded that they view more favorably the monarchs than the politicians. Right? So it's like consent is being manufactured. That, come on, guys. Like, can't we just dispense of this nonsense of democracy and voting? Like, it has anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
In the big picture, it's like, come on. Like, you all know that you'd rather just have a king who just rules it, and at least maybe they might care about you a little bit. Where the politician is in a constant state of pressure to appease its donor class, and if it doesn't successfully enough, they're going to be outed. And someone like Thomas Massey, even he's one of the few exceptions to the rule. Even though there are a few, he's not like perfect. And
I doubt it.
yeah, I mean,
it's like that whole. Oh, sorry,
keep going. You go. No, you go.
I was just gonna say, no, it's making me think. You're talking about would a person rather have a politician or a monarch be in charge? And it reminds me of the thing where it was more popular like last year, where they would ask women, or they would these polls online, if you're in the middle of the woods, would you rather run into a bear or a man? And women overwhelmingly choose bear.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, worst case, the bear will just kill me or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Worst case, the man is gonna like torture me, rape me, keep me in like a hole, and make me put on lotion and shit. Like. And one other thing, because we moved past it, but just about Switzerland, just a little factoid. I recently learned they are the only country on Earth that, as far as we know, only country on Earth that has enough supplied bunkers for their entire population.
Wow.
Food, water, medical, everything already set up, ready to go.
I mean, it seems that since the Congress of Vienna, have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
So that was, I guess, in like 1815 or something. And that was basically after Napoleon was put down. And then the oligarchs of Europe just said, all right, Switzerland is now the place where we store our loot.
Right.
So that if anyone else runs crazy again and tries to take it all over, our shit is safe there. So and what is a bank? If not like a place where you store the loot, but you make a business out of it. You store the loot, and then you're going to make money on the loot while it's stored and protected. But then eventually you want to move shit around once you get enough ill-gotten gains, that it's like, all right, let's spread it out and make a new bank somewhere else and diversify the risk. And basically, those of us who are just pawns in this game are like, what else can we do? You're going to like put the money under your mattress, and that's what we're coming up to, with the CBDC thing,
Exactly. That's where I was gonna go.
right? It's like, dude, this programmable money. It's like we can take it away. You know, something like this, like Nick Fuentes douchebag. You know, he just got all of his money from the bank like frozen and seized. And at least the last I heard, unless something has changed, he was basically told, yeah, you're not getting that back. So he had like a $500,000 in the bank, and and it was just like taken. And last I heard, it was just like, yeah, you're not getting that back. So that's life now. If
So
you
yeah.
and honestly, with Nick Fuentes, he seems like such a Fed, you know? He seems like such a
Or wannabe Fed.
yeah. I mean, I guess you know we can't know for
But
sure.
yeah, anybody that's gotten that popular online is questionable. Or
Right, and
or they may be unwitting,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
Witty
oh,
or
this
unwitty.
guy matches what we're wanting. Let's make sure he gets 1 million subscribers or something.
Mhm. He's the new face of anti-Semitism, and and even though he's right, he's like he's the anti-Semite that makes excuses for Israel, and so because it's that weird like Tommy Robinson needle that they want to thread. You know, Tommy Robinson, that like I think he's like this anti-immigration guy from I think the UK or somewhere in
Okay.
Europe. I think the UK. Like, let's just say the whole Brexit, Trump, Tommy Robinson, Nick Fuentes, whatever you want to call this thing that's been happening. That because right, it's like what you want to do. It's like ETF. You want to create ETFs or tokenize everything, and it's like a way to create like a simulation in a way, um, where people aren't going to really buy gold, or they're going to buy an ETF or paper gold, or they're going to buy like basically buying a ticket at the casino or something, where it's like if this goes up or down, then when you turn the ticket, you will make the profits or the losses on it, but you're not actually going to be buying the real thing. You're going to be buying this thing that represents it, and so the whole Brexit or Trump or Bernie or whatever, these movements that are ultimately, because they don't want to like give way to populism, policies for the actual people. What you want to do is give the appearance of it, whether it's someone like a Trump or a Bernie. And a Trump or Bernie, I mean, I'd have to assume that someone like Bernie deep down would prefer to help the average person. But he's just a flawed human being like the rest of us.
Yeah,
that,
sure.
And even if Trump too, even if you think Trump, there's some part of him that wants to, whatever, either help people because he's deep down, he's not quite as bad as some of us feel, or that he's so vindictive enough that he might be get pissed off enough at how he gets used like a jizz rag, and that he might get pissed off enough to be like, all right, well, I'm not going to let you have your cake and eat it too. And which is one of the sentiments I've heard, from people putting some hope in Trump that he's going to do the right thing or fight the deep state or whatever.
Yeah.
Where someone like Bernie is like, I mean, they're both total fraud, in my opinion. They're total frauds, but in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in weird ways they're more honest than most other politicians.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really think either of them really thought they were going to get that close to punching distance of the seat of power.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't really think they were thinking, like if you and I all of a sudden, if this podcast blew up out of nowhere, and next thing you know, this becomes like Joe Rogan successful, we're going to be like, what the fuck? We were not planning on this. We were just having fun and doing our thing for our own reasons. Now all of a sudden, we're getting called all sorts of names in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Fox News and MSNBC. They're, calling us all sorts of terrible names and making sure everyone we know, friends and family and, people in our community will look at us and be like, you're bad people.
Yeah.
You're not allowed, and not allowed in polite society. And I'd have to assume that people like Bernie and Trump were like, whoa, I didn't think, this, I didn't think I'd be this successful, but here I am.
Yeah.
And I did not game plan at all for this next phase. Now I need some help. Now I need some people that come in and advise me of like
the best people, only the best people. Well, really, it's the opposite. It's like, I'm going to like hire people that aren't very qualified. So if things go well, then I'll say I did that. And if it doesn't, then I just fire them.
Yeah. Right? Like that scene I love in that Soderbergh movie Traffic, where Michael Douglas becomes the drug czar, and his predecessor, who's he's about to replace, basically gives him this whole talk and says, here, you got 2 letters. I'm writing 2 letters. They'll be in your desk. When the first emergency scandal happens that you think there's no way out of it possibly, open up letter number 1.
Yeah.
And then if scandal and emergency number 2 happens, and you're like, there's no way that I can possibly get out of this, open letter number 2. And then so when the first scandal that they think they can't get out of comes, he goes, well, here you go. Letter number 1. It says, blame everything on me. My predecessor. and then that gets you out of it. But then when scandal number 2 comes along that you can't get out of, open letter number 2. He opens that and it says, start writing 2 letters.
What is that from again? Do you know? What is that from again?
Yeah, it's from Traffic by Soderbergh. Remember that movie?
Of course. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I just missed it when you said that originally.
Okay.
And I knew the story, and I was remembering it. I was reading, but I just didn't remember what it's from. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, amazing.
So, and that's like how the system works. It's like, look, everyone gets 2 strikes and you're out, for most people, and I think someone like Trump, he's someone that's like, he's like the cat with 9 lives because he's this exception to the rule, because they want him, like, basically, I feel like I'm starting to see now. I never understood ever since I for example, since I met you like 20 some odd years ago, that we've been trying to understand and this stuff and make sense of it all. A lot of people that were into this stuff back in the OGs were like, they want to bring down America and they want to take down the dollar and they want to do all these bad things to America. And I was just like, on some level, like, okay, I kind of get it. These are some evil motherfuckers that are willing to do things like 9/11 and whatever, but I didn't understand why they wanted to necessarily take down America. And now I'm starting to see, well, of course, like, America has been this bully on the playground for so long.
Yes.
That it's gotten a little too big for its britches, and they want to play this balance of power game, and they want to never let, see, whether it's the Nazis or in Germany or the Nazis in Ukraine now, or Al Qaeda, ISIS, or that thing I sent you earlier today with Kiriakou and Miles Copeland, the father of the police drummer Stuart Copeland, who was from the CIA or U.S. or British intelligence after World War II, that was helping to overthrow, but then advise the governments of Syria and Egypt. Even though he was, of course, working for intelligence, Western intelligence, he basically said that, yeah, we worked with the terrorist groups and they did a lot of our dirty work and they were our dupes. And then Kiriakou was basically like, actually, it's more than that. They're not really our dupes. they're our partners. But then at some point, but they have to know their place. It's like, guys, you're not going to become the king, you know. At best, you can become a very powerful piece on the board if you're all pawns, and if you play your hand well enough, you might make it to the end of the board, and then you get recycled as a new and super powerful piece, much more powerful than the pawn, but you're never going to become the king. You can't become the king. And there's only one king. And of course, this is all representative of hierarchical structure, and that the old power networks are not just going to give power freely unless you overthrow them, which is, right, at least what some people are saying the power struggle is going on right now between the financial industrial complex, the military industrial complex, and the technical industrial complex. And it seems like more a fight between the financial and the technical industrial complexes. And I don't know that it's a fight where they're just going to kill each other as much as it's which one is a more effective way. And someone like Jack Cruz would say they used to need Epstein, but now the technocracy and the surveillance state that they want to put into place, they don't really need Epstein because they are surveilling everything. And now they have the AI in place to sort through all of this data and information. And it's something I remember I used to say to people years ago when I would say, guys, they're like watching and recording everything. And people this was back before Snowden. And people were like, that's paranoid conspiracy theory. And it's like, guys, okay, that's what you think, but this is clearly happening. But at some point, like, they're not just recording it all and they're just going to use it against us in real time. But it's at some point, if one of us does something that they don't like, that really bothers them, they will have a file on each of us, and then they can go into that file and look through it and be like, okay, here we go. Here we got some things that we can hold against them. You know, here are these things that they did that were either whatever, immoral or illegal or whatever. And now, you know, we have the leverage. And the AI is clearly here now, and it's probably been here a lot longer than we've known. And it can sort through the shit, make the file, find the shit, because it seems like that was, you know, people like Bill Binney, the NSA whistleblower, would say, is that the whole surveillance state that they were erecting, the part of the problem was that all this data, all this information, but it was just too much and they couldn't really make sense of it or do exactly what they wanted with it. And clearly, one of the main functions that AI is going to do, it's not the only one, but one of them, is it's going to be able to comb through that shit, find the needles in the haystack on each one of us. And if one of us ever steps out of line or does something that really bothers them, they just go to that. And they don't need the Epstein anymore, even though the Epstein is very helpful in certain ways. Because like someone like Trump, it's clearly, if it was just low grade compromise that they had on him, he wouldn't be
right. It would work. Right.
Yeah. And you know, because it's like, oh my God, it's that's why it's like they keep, and if they ever let loose the real shit that they have on Trump, then he'd be taken out of office. You know, if like they release some video of him raping a kid or whatever they have on him, if that were to come out, then they no longer have that over him. So it's this weird game where the leverage is best, but it loses its weight and importance once you've used it. And
the threat is always more powerful than the execution. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Right. And really, you'd rather just have him or anyone, but we're talking about Trump right now, have anyone just at night, they're in bed and they're going, oh my God, I've done so many terrible things. I wonder which of those are on video. To not even know. You see what I mean? Even more mysterious that like, okay, I know those things are recorded, but there's all these other things too. Oh no, what about that?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And because we've all done things, we've all done and said things and written things that can absolutely be held against us. And that's what's something that's interesting, like say about like with like someone like Rogan. Remember what it was like a year or two ago where the thing of him saying the N-word came out, like a compilation of him saying the N-word a few times.
Okay.
And then it became this big thing, and it had his 15 minutes of fame, that thing where it's like all these like black people who were friends with him were like, no, I refuse to go on his show. But it came and went, and that's the type of thing, like they've been even though someone like Jack Cruz is like, dude, Joe Rogan is a useful idiot for the technical industrial complex. And I could see that. I could see how he doesn't understand the part he plays for them, and it's a helpful thing to get him to. It's like they haven't been able to fully bring him to heel, as far as we can tell, because he still seems to more or less talk about what he wants to talk about, but he's not someone like he's into the UFO stuff, but he's not really like deep, like he's not like deeply knowledgeable about a lot of the shit we are.
Mm-hmm.
He's heard about a lot of that stuff, but he kind of still plays that game where he's like, oh, this stuff is crazy talk. Like he's good friends with like Kurt Metzger, and he'll have Kurt Metzger on the show, but he'll still be like, oh, well, Metzger says this and that. And it's like, it's because I do think part of what we're talking about here, or part of the issue at hand, is overcoming the ego desires to be allowed into polite society and to not be ostracized. Because embarrassment ends up being the most, like, better than, it's like a form of torture. It's like social torture. And embarrassment
like the original sin too.
Really?
Yeah, finish your thing and then I'll go into it.
Oh, no, you go.
Do I not know how to spell embarrassment? Oh, 2 R's. Okay, cool. Yeah. I was just talking about this with Emery.
Mm-hmm.
He had his day off from school and he spent the entire day naked. The entire day.
Mm-hmm.
The entire day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, bro, you spent the entire day naked. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what do you mean good job? And I said, well, as people get older, they tend to get embarrassed of their own naked bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad to see that you don't care about that. And you're just, flying your freak flag. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, oh yeah. And I was saying, yeah, that's how God knew that Adam and Eve had become self-conscious, is they started to cover themselves with leaves, with the fig leaf, the famous fig leaf.
Mm-hmm.
And so God goes in the garden and he's like, Adam, Eve, where are you? And they don't like respond or anything. And he's like, what? Mm-hmm. And then he goes and finds them and they're like, hi, they're like putting like figs over themselves. And he's like, what? Like,
yeah, what the fuck
happened? Oh shit! The thing that I knew was going to happen happened. This sucks,
mm-hmm.
Oh, crap. And it's so interesting during that storytelling. There's after that, God is then speaking to other gods. That's where that Elohim is being used, because God is now talking to other gods. He's saying, "Oh no, they ate the thing. They're now gonna be as smart as us," and it's in plural. Anyway. That yes, the embarrassment as the sign that we have left our oneness with God, or we think we are separate. We now think we are separate and we've got to hide this, and oh shit, like this is weird, or I did something wrong, or blah 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 blah. And then insert insert, we need a way out of that to not be embarrassed of who we are. And so insert Jesus, who comes and pays off the original sin. He pays off the original sin and thereby delivers the secondary fruit of the garden of which we were not allowed. The first being knowledge of good and evil, which is really our ability to have self-consciousness and therefore commit evil acts or good acts, right? And then the second tree, which was once we got kicked out, then they put a angel with a revolving flaming sword to guard the second tree, which is the tree of everlasting life. And that is what then Jesus delivers. If you follow me, you can have eternal life. Because you have a soul, because you can't be destroyed, because you're not your fucking body. There actually isn't life or death. You can forgive everybody if you fucking want to. A lot of the people doing evil, they forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't know that they're being fucking evil or doing shit that's causing people to die who shouldn't fucking die, or blah blah blah. Okay, yeah. So we got the embarrassment and original sin. I want to add in.
Yeah.
In Spanish, being pregnant is embarazada or something like that. To be embarrassed, to be pregnant. Spanish for pregnant. Yeah, do that. I just want to make sure I'm getting the right word. Embarazada, embarazado. Yeah. Exactly.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like to bear fruit.
Right.
Has a connection to embarrassment.
Right.
That's interesting. And I guess it's almost like the Kuato. Or at least it makes me think of Kuato from Total Recall. That like being in the mutant guy that's like that grows out of his stomach. That is the prophet or the real leader of the resistance.
Yeah.
Like some new separate thing growing out of a person. I don't know, it just makes me think of that for some reason. Not really sure. But again, it's separation, a form of separation. And how, separation is the great illusion. And that great illusion, and I guess you could say maybe because Odin started in school, they started going into Greek mythology, and he was learning about Pandora's box, and he was not like, he was a little, normally he's basically like the top of his class and everything, and this is something that's like new to him, so he's not feeling that way, and so he's a little lost. And yesterday he was like, Dad, what about, and I've been trying to get him into mythology for a while, but he's always resisted for whatever reason. And now he's like intrigued because they're learning it in school, and they were going into Pandora's box. And so I started telling him some of the story about it, but then I was like, you know what? It's been so long since I've looked into that story. And I just found some things on YouTube, just some little short animated things to show him, to help, introduce him to it more, and go into, as I said to him this morning, I showed it to him, and I'm not sure how much he understood a lot of it. It's just like the story that unfolds, and it was like a 5 or 6 minute thing that I don't think he really understood much, but whatever, that's the introduction, the foot in the door. And then I was trying to talk to him. I was telling him, like, trying to use this as an example of, that saying I love, small minds think of people, middle minds think of events, and great minds think of ideas. And so I was trying to say, like, in Pandora's box, the people are Pandora, the gods and the humans. The event is Pandora's box being opened and letting loose all this evil and death and destruction and illness, which leads to a lot of suffering. But the idea, or at least part of the idea that off the top of my head was what the fuck, like basically this was a setup. that why would they instill Pandora with so much curiosity and then give her a box saying, do not open this box, which is, bless you, which is the bless you, which is the surefire way to make someone want to open the box. So the idea, and I doubt that he's going to learn this in elementary school, but the idea here is what's going on here? Why are they making her so curious, but then telling her you can't open this box? Like something else is going on here. That this is meant to explain something, and the hope. And I was trying to tell him, I was like saying like this other saying I really like called "losing all hope is freedom," and to which it's probably a little too complicated for him to understand right now.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain it to him a little bit and be like, look, hope is good in some instances, but hope can be a type, can be something that can hurt us, because hope gives us this idea that, I guess to me, the way I say it is, hope is really only good for when, like, if you're going to kill yourself, or you are in such a bad place, then maybe you could say, okay, hope might be good to help you get through a really tough time. But hope is something that, like, for example, it's something that makes people fall for people like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, because you put your hope in something that the hope is like, it's like a drug that makes you feel better. And maybe you can say, well, that the ends justify the means, because otherwise that person was going to kill themselves. And so now they didn't kill themselves, but you want them to be free of all attachments that aren't truth and beauty. And hope is more times than not is used and exploited by powerful, clever people who want to make it so that, like, because one of the things, like the video I showed him was basically saying that the hope, Zeus put the hope in to Pandora's box, and that was in a way the cruelest of it all, because while Zeus wanted to unleash these devastating and horrible things, he also still wanted all these people to worship him. So he wanted hope in part so that they wouldn't just die and be so defeated. Like, he wanted them to have a little bit of something so that he could, like, in a way, like, beat them down, but not, like, in a way, it's almost like what Alan Greenspan said when he testified to Congress in the late 90s, where he's like, this America's economy really only works when labor is totally desperate and has nothing. It's not saying when labor is dead, but it just wants it to be so beaten down that it'll accept and submit and do what the oligarchs want. But they still want them to be alive, because they still need them to make their shit and sell their shit and buy their shit and all that. And that's what I say, like, we're reaching this interesting inflection point now where I think they're finally, with AI and robotics and technology, they're finally getting to this place where I don't think they need us as much. And at some point soon, they're going to need us much less. And then they can start just killing us and letting us die. Whereas the next pandemic they make won't just be COVID, some fucking flu that they rebrand as something worse than it is. It's gonna, they'll release shit and do stuff that, or it'll be like that Jack Kruse magnetic event where all these people are just going to start dying and they don't really need us anymore. And all these tech billionaires and, billionaire and trillionaires are setting up whether it's in Switzerland and all over the world, all these bunkers and all these things, the break glass in case of emergency, that they're planning to go into when shit hits the fan, and the rest of us will be fucked, and they can just kind of sit back and be like, we just got to wait this shit out, whether it's months or years. We'll just have to wait this shit out. And what we're setting up, and that's interesting when you bring up about Switzerland, that they're thinking, they still want Switzerland, like for some reason, and that doesn't mean though, just because they have the capacity to do it for all of their people, doesn't mean they're going to do that, right? They've just set up a infrastructure where that's a place where it can house a lot more than some of the other ones,
Well, yeah, and who knows with all the deep underground military facilities, including, do you know about like the underground Los Angeles?
Tell me about it. How about you, dude? It's starting to rain, so I'm gonna go inside. So how about you go on about this? I'm just gonna listen for the next few minutes.
Okay, well, first I want to address the hope thing, because it's making me think of the swimming frog experiment, which is if you take a frog and put it in a smooth container that's filled with water, or wait, it's not a frog, it's a mouse.
Okay.
Hold on. Swimming mouse. I was just realizing, because a frog would be like, oh, thanks for putting me in the water. Anyway, so you put a mouse in a glass of water, which it cannot escape. There's smooth sides, there's water in it. It will swim and try and stay alive for, I don't remember, 10 or 15 minutes or something. Okay. And then at some point it gives up and dies. It drowns. If right as or right before it's about to give up and drown, if you take it out and put it on the counter for a second, and then put it back in the water,
like
the mouse will not stop swimming.
So in a way, it was given this little bit of hope.
Now it will work. It will work. It will pay taxes. It will just keep swimming now, like forever.
Wow.
And then okay, underground LA, there is a separate highway system that includes separate things like a Starbucks and other retail retail establishments that are just for the super mega redonkulo rich. Which I was connecting that to, gosh, can we even imagine, based on the whistleblowers, based on what we would do if we were in charge, how many gigantic underground military or otherwise facilities that then you would also, you would want a lot of them linked together. You'd want to create a network of these things. So in terms of underground stuff, oh my gosh, can you even imagine? I can't even imagine with what we even know now. It's got to be what, 2-3 times of that? Right. What about under the ocean? What about in other places? Like I've heard of like in the Himalayas and stuff. Like if you really want to hide some shit, you're not going to put it in like the middle of nowhere, Arizona. You're going to go to fucking the Himalayas or some shit. If you really want to hide, or you're going to go under the ocean, or you're going to put it on the dark side of the moon or some shit like that. If you really need it to be secret, you're not going to just like, sure, it's Area 51. Anybody can go on like a high hill and with binoculars see it. No, sorry, that's not good enough. That won't be good enough to hide it. Or you wouldn't do that. Come on, no way. 731,
which
731.
which comes back to like this the Switzerland thing with the mountains, or even Iran, being such a mountainous region. That's why you want to use mountainous regions are pretty ideally set
Yeah.
for protecting your shit
Yeah.
and hiding shit and making it so that it's very difficult to penetrate that. And most of us who are just living our normal lives, we're not thinking that way, but it really serves a hell of a purpose for maintaining, or like the idea of the bank. Creating, why do you create a bank? You do it to store your loot and keep it safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you get more and more loot, you need to make more banks and store loot in different places and build bunkers in different places. And the next thing you know, you've got a whole network, or as like Catherine Austin Fitts says, the breakaway civilization, where they've been building this underground network for Lord knows how long. And as time goes on, they just keep on doing it. And you're probably going to have the nouveau riche be like, I want in on this. And it's like, okay, you can have in on this, but you didn't get it on the ground level. So if you really want to be in on this, because that's what, like, I read something about Sam Altman and Peter Thiel, that Peter Thiel was taking, Sam Altman they would go fly around and he would show like where is it, New Zealand or something, where he has some underground bunker facilities, and it's basically like, right, it's like, all right, yeah, you're like the new kid on the block, we'll show you the ropes, but it's going to cost you, and now that you've got shit tons of money, you don't mind spending some of that money on what's ultimately insurance, right? Because that's really what it is. It's an insurance for like when shit really hits the fan, which that's why it would make sense to scare the shit out of many nouveau riche people so that they will pool their money and resources towards helping build new facilities. And they're still getting, because it's a giant pyramid game, right? This too.
Yeah.
Right? Where they're like, all right, the nouveau riche are going to have to, you want in, but you're not at the top of the pyramid. Even though you might, like Sam Altman is pretty fucking wealthy now. And even a Peter Thiel is pretty fucking wealthy, but they're not like that old money, and even like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds that clearly rose to the top. Like, it seems like, and I would assume that that guy, like that Meowlin guy, talks about, like, for example, that I don't know if I sent it to you, but he was posting something that was basically yesterday he was like responding or debunking some person that was saying like the Rothschilds have something like, I forgot what it was called, like the right to, it was something about like it was someone claiming that the Rothschilds had bought up the rights of the British royal family in a way that if they were going to have children, that their children would have to be Rothschilds or somehow. And the Meowlin guy was basically talking about the Knights of the Garter. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that before. And I think he said that the Knights of the Garter was originally, he says that the Knights of the Garter, according to him, is like the most elite of these secret rings within rings on that level of, because there's like whatever, the Knights of Malta, there's the Knights Templar,
they've got some cool purple robes and shit. It's cool. I'm looking at them right now.
Yeah, I guess in memory serves, like 1374 or something when it started.
1348.
1348. Thank you. Where
1738. Okay, sorry.
where whatever they created this thing, the circle within a circle, that if you want to be in part of that, and again, this is just, we're attempting to understand human power structure, human social structure, where people have created these, whatever you want to call them, institutions or organizations or secret societies that will be impenetrable to outsiders. Right? And for those who, like, before I looked into any of this shit, I would have been like, all right, who cares? What's the fucking point? Some people are gonna walk around in silly robes and say these silly oaths, and who cares? And it's like, no, but think about it. It's like, you want to make something that no one else can penetrate unless you invite them in. So that, almost like secret handshakes, right? Or secret codes that, like, if you don't know that secret code, you're not going to be allowed access or entry. And you're going to make all these outer rings that are still very powerful, that I would assume the Sam Altmans and the Peter Thiels and even probably the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, they had to play some sort of game where, despite them becoming super wealthy and super powerful, there's this pre-existing network that doesn't want to be penetrated, and you're going to make it so that the nouveau riche, the new power of the time, will want entry to that, and they're going to be frustrated at how they're not being allowed entry. Kind of like, that, I don't know if you saw that show, The Gilded Age, where it talks about, it takes place in like the 1880s, and in high society in New York City, there's an old opera house that's like the opera house, and all the wealthy and elite go to that opera house, and then the nouveau riche at the time, who are like the Rockefellers and J.P. Morgan and whatnot, they want to create their own. They want entry to that, but the old money is like, fuck these Rockefellers and Morgans, these upstarts, and they want to keep them out. But then you have these, like, the nouveau riche of the robber barons, who are like, all right, well, if you're not going to allow us entry, we'll just make our own fucking opera house. And then, but the old guard has all these, inns with newspapers and circles of power and influence that do everything on their level best to make sure that the nouveau riche can't create a new opera house, because this opera house, whatever, back then that was just a big deal. Now it would be like the Met Gala, right? This fucking joke, this bread and circus joke, for people to desire to go, and it's, or like the Oscars, or what I'm saying? Like, one day something's going to replace the Oscars, and then they'll be like, oh, remember the Oscars? And they go, oh, that's the old way. This is the new thing. Probably like whatever, when AI fully takes over, or like, how we've talked about before, that at some point, like, even though right now we can enjoy some aspects of AI, we're like, I don't know, Alan Holdsworth or Dillinger Escape Plan, or Stevie Wonder or whoever, like, yeah, you might be able to make an AI version that young people won't be able to tell the difference, but we can tell the difference. And we can enjoy some AI, but we're like, it's a different thing than the real thing. But at some point, we're going to be phased out, and we're already old fogies. And at some point, though, not quite yet, like, but at some point, the youngins are going to be like, oh, you guys care about whether it's real people or AI?
Yeah.
You know, like, why would you care about it?
Right.
I'm listening to the same, just like at one point it was like, you like bands that play electric guitar?
Yeah,
Electric
right.
guitar's real music.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's cheating. Or, you know, or like, you lost weight with Ozempic? Like, that's cheating. And it's like, no, it's not. You know, it's like, at some point, like the younger generation is just going to embrace it all. And we're going to be totally left out and phased out in that regard. And I feel like power structure will work like that in many ways. And the old guard will do what it can to prevent people from penetrating the deepest of the deep, you know, that protects, that is like, it's like a, you know, the most you can do is eat part of the peach. You know, you're not going to get to be the pit that's going to plant the new tree. That's going to be the new peach tree that will create more peaches. It's like some of you Sam Altmans and Peter Thiels, you'll get to chew on some of the tasty flesh of the peach, but you won't be allowed access to the real inner circle, you know. And I mean, who knows? It seems like Rockefeller Rothschild axis has, you know, taken control, and to some extent they clearly have, but it's really hard for us to know. And that guy, like, that's what's interesting to me about this Meowlin guy, is he's one of those people that's trying to say, hey guys, these Knights of the Garter thing, that's been there for, you know, over 600, you know, years, and it hasn't gone away, and there's something there that has maintained. And that's why someone like Professor Zhang will go on about how, well, the Jews or the Frankists made a deal with the black nobility, you know, these people that have made their fortunes in Venice or wherever, you know, and then stored their loot somewhere, and then you know, someone like Napoleon becomes useful to the nouveau riche who are trying to scare the shit out of the old guard, right? And overthrow the kings and get them to run. You know, and back then they didn't have the options. It's not like they had private jets and access to the true satellites and the true information and the, you know what I'm saying? Like, there must be, and as outsiders, all we can really do is kind of speculate and use all this research to try to make better speculations, but we're still just kind of guessing. And even though we can approximate more or less the way the system works, but if you don't really understand all of it, you know, it's going to be easy for us to take a wrong turn, make that left at Albuquerque, you know, and then we're lost. And so, because there are times, I don't know if you felt this way too, but there have been times when I'm like, why am I still researching this shit? I think I get it now. Like, what's the point? But then as time goes on, I'm like, oh, this is why I keep on researching it. Because if you don't, and you lose track of the 3-card Monty card, you know, you'll just pick the wrong card. And you have to kind of go deeper, as deep as you can get, until you finally maybe lose a desire to keep digging, which at some point maybe I will. And maybe once I feel like, okay, I've truly cracked the code, and then now I can accurately predict with, you know, 90-something% accuracy, all these things are going to happen. Like what it seems like someone like Jack Cruz can kind of do, and it seems like, because if he is like a Bitcoin billionaire and has been on this trail for way before we were, you know, and he clearly has some sort of inside access. I'm not saying to everything, but in some ways that you and I just don't have. And there are things he said where I'm like, I don't know about that. But then a little bit of time goes by and it pans out. And I'm like, oh yeah, like he really knows his shit. Like, I'm not saying he knows everything, but he knows a lot, and he has this insider access. He just has said a number of things like I brought up before, like the Susie Wiles stuff, not realizing how much of a role the Susie Wiles has played in managing all this shit. And I don't know if I sent you the record, the Susie Wiles track record of the lobbying impact that she's had.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like if you don't know about Susie Wiles and you don't understand who she's from, all this shit, then it's like you're just gonna be like, well, why is RFK Jr. Not doing what we thought he was gonna do? We were hoping he was gonna do X, Y, and Z, and he threw it. Hey, he's done a few decent things, but he's totally dropped the ball in these other ways. And it's like, well, you don't understand things like Susie Wiles.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand these mechanisms that are in place to make it so even if someone like RFK Jr. gets in there, it's going to be really fucking hard for him to do what he knows better. Like, he knows that glyphosate is terrible. He sued them. Like, he knows it causes cancer, yet he has to go because he's part of this, Trump's cabinet. He's got to be a good soldier,
mm-hmm.
and he's got to make justifications and excuses for why, we just got to give liability protection to fucking Bear Santo, and with glyphosate, and just spray glyphosate all over the forest and every bit of land that we have now. It's like, wait, this guy's getting on board with that? It's like, yeah, that's the way it works. Don't fall for the hope. Don't fall for the hope. Because the hope is what strings you along and says, oh, maybe it'll get better. In some ways, maybe some things will get better, but it also prevents people from realizing how urgent things are. Just put your faith and your hope in the savior figure,
mm-hmm.
where no one's coming to save you.
Mm-hmm.
Only if we all start waking up and taking it to the next level ourselves first, like becoming like that samurai guy, what's his name? The rules of the samurai, Musashi, thank you. Right? Where it's like, that's the thing. If each one of us, if I just snap my fingers right now, and then every human being started becoming that guy, dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, we'd all conquer the fear of death. We'd all master these various arts that are going to be necessary if we're going to take on and free ourselves from this slave system. That some people, if you call it a slave system, they get offended. They say, don't you dare compare this to a slave system.
Yeah, and there's more slaves now than there ever has been. Like,
yeah. Like, that's racist if you call it slave system. It's like, shut the fuck up, you stupid fucking shit lib. Like, you're supposed to be a liberal. You've become the biggest bootlicker around. Like, what the fuck?
Ride the wave.
Like, do you talk to Emery about this stuff at all, or what?
Yeah, well, I used the term, this was like a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. I used the term occult, occult knowledge, because this was when there was that Jang video where he goes into the demiurge and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me just write this down. And I was talking about it maybe to Rachel or maybe to Emery or something. Anyway, I used the term occult, and he was like, what does occult mean? And I was like, well, it means like hidden or secret knowledge. And he's like, well, like, tell me about it. And I'm like, well, I started thinking, and I was like, wait, you first you need to know the standard typical knowledge so that then you can compare and contrast to the secret. So what we started doing is just going through every major religion and arguing kind of the pros and cons of it, like kind of what makes sense, what doesn't, what if they're right, what if they're wrong, the kind of basic tenets of it and stuff like that. And then we started going into some of the occult, hidden secret knowledge within some of those religions that I'm familiar with. So that's kind of where we're at in it, you know?
Okay.
Because I want him to be able to argue both sides of things. That's like one of the things I model and we practice and we do a lot here is try to argue every side of situations or ideas or whatever. Why is it a good idea to go to school? And also why is school not very important in the grand scheme of things, you know, that looking at both of those. So it's kind of a continuation of that because I want him to be able to argue pro or con for any of the for any idea, including philosophical or spiritual ones, because a lot of times you're going to run into people who are really pushy with those topics, and so to be prepared to be able to argue both sides as it's so freaking useful, or at least it has been for me.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's so useful, and it's like a lost art.
Of course, yeah. It's what is that? Socratic questioning, I think.
Yep, Socratic.
Just like asking questions, exploring things as extraordinarily educational and revealing.
Yeah, no, it's so rare. It's just everyone gets herded into one side or the other, and
right.
You know, instead of like, I like to be like, all right, well, you're on that side and I'm on this side. All right, how about instead of me debate my side,
right? Let's switch. Let's try switching for a second. Yeah,
and then see how you do. I'm like, I'll bet you I can make a much better case for your side than you can.
Well, I bet you won't do that.
But that's interesting because, like, to try to find the nuance of why, like, say, like, if I were to argue my dad about like the Israel stuff,
right,
and be like, all right, Dad, you're gonna take the Palestinian side, and I'm gonna take the Israeli side.
No, he won't do it though. Do you already feel that? Can you already feel that?
Oh yeah, he won't.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like this is a great thought experiment. But what's so interesting is he won't do that. You know, or I'd be so unbelievably impressed if he was like, okay, right? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you be impressed if he took that challenge?
Well, I think I could see him taking the challenge. I would be happy and somewhat impressed, but honestly, I feel like he's smart enough that you know, I don't want to make like a inaccurate caricature of him. I do think that he wouldn't do a good job of it, but I would be very impressed and surprised if he did a good job of that. Like, I could see him trying it and doing a very half-assed version of it, because he's just so ignorant about that shit. Whereas I think if I gave the pro-Israel side a lot of the things I would be saying, not all of them, but I think I'd have a portion of it that would greatly overlap with what he would say for that side, but I would add things that he wouldn't add because I don't really think he I don't think he's presently capable of understanding what Israel, in my opinion, really is. Like, he's so emotionally wed to this more antiquated, older version or definition of what Zionism is, as opposed to what I'd say it really is. Like when I told, like one of the last times we locked horns about it was, I don't know, a few months ago, where I was like, Dad, I'm like, look, but he was like leaving at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and so we didn't really get to play it out to completion. But I was like, Dad, I'm like, honestly, I'm like, I look at it like in a similar way as I do with Ukraine. Whereas if you really care about Ukraine and you really care about the Ukrainian people, then you wouldn't be posting a flag of Ukraine on your social media profile and saying, I stand with Ukraine or I stand with Israel. It's like, because really the empire is using the people of Ukraine in a similar way it uses the people of Israel, you know, to go and achieve empire desires. And so I would define, I'm like, Dad, you would define Zionism. And if I was going to argue the pro-Zionist side, I would include his definition of Zionism, which is, you know, the Jews have faced so much persecution and anti-Semitism and atrocities that they needed a home of their own to protect them, you know, from historical persecution and atrocities against them. I would say that, but then I would say, and I think that was, you know, like J.P. Morgan said, there are two reasons things happen: the good reason and the real reason. I'm like, that is the good reason. The real reason is they wanted to use Jews as cannon fodder and frontline soldiers to achieve empire aims and desire. And you know, so like every time we're trying to whatever, you know, seemed like, well, we're going to go negotiate with Iran. All of a sudden, Israel kills the negotiators, or Israel starts attacking Lebanon and undermining all these things. I remember, and we talked about how like Trump had, what did he do? He like, remember that time I sent you something where it was like, he was like on that interview on that he got put on the spot, and I think it was Jimmy Dore was showing it, and it was like he responded to a question that he was like not going to reveal some of the details about negotiation, and it sounded like he was like, yeah, Israel basically keeps on undermining the negotiations.
Right. They keep killing the negotiators. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, it's like he's looking for an off ramp, but Israel won't let him take the off ramp. Like that's part of, and I was saying the empire compartmentalizes in different nation states what it wants to achieve, and Israel serves a certain purpose to the empire that, you know, in some ways there's overlap to America and the UK, but in other ways it's like there are certain things that Israel can do and get away with that is harder for an American or someone in the UK could. Or when these Epstein files come out, you know, no one in America has gotten punished for it. You know, it's only like a couple of people in Europe or the UK have been punished. You know, it's like, it's this thing where they just get to play this, I don't know, like whack-a-mole kind of aspect to the game where they can just, or like Crazy Eddie. I don't know if you know the story of Crazy Eddie's, you know, where it was electronics store from like the 80s that at some point was doing, was like very fraudulent and basically when I guess when investigators started realizing how fraudulent Crazy Eddie's was, and you should look up the old Crazy Eddie's commercial. I don't know if you remember it. A little bit older, and just like Crazy Eddie's, where the prices are insane. It was like this really funny, over the top commercials. But basically, like investigators started finding out that it was like fraud, and that when they go to try to audit some of their stores, Crazy Eddie's would just move inventory from one store to another because they knew the auditors were going to that store. So they kept this like game going, and bought more time for themselves, and it's like so clearly that the empire is playing some crazy Eddie like game.
Yeah.
Where it compartmentalizes things in different nation states, like Crazy Eddie did with different stores, and move shit around. So, all right, well, the FBI is going to investigate the Charlie Kirk murder, but it's like, yeah, we're not going to investigate potential foreign involvement in this because the FBI investigates domestic stuff.
Right. Right.
That's like in that movie Brazil, like, oh, you want information retrieval. This is information processing. There's what's wrong. Oh, the CIA investigates foreign things. The FBI investigates domestic things. Sorry. We're so sorry, but we can't investigate these allegations of foreign involvement in this assassination,
Yeah.
And so they get to keep this game going so that, maybe on occasion someone gets busted, that guy like Mendelsohn in the UK who had to take a fall for the Epstein shit, but the network goes on.
Right.
And keeps intact.
Right.
And this, which comes back to the peach, the pit of the peach, or the inner circle, or you want to create a Knights of the Garter, the Garter, or these different layers where it's like, yeah, we have this inner circle that you just can't penetrate. You can pierce one of the outer layers a bit, and that's the way investigations really work. They try to bust someone lower level and then say, throw the kitchen sink at them and say, you're going to jail forever unless you roll over on your higher ups and you try to work your way up, if it's like some drug network or whatever, so that the people will start ratting each other out. But you want to create something where the inner sanctum has the least likelihood of being penetrated, and you're going to go to elaborate lengths to prop that up and make it so you can keep your Crazy Eddie games going perpetually. And then you just like, all right, all of a sudden now all these scientists have been gone missing or dead, and now all of a sudden that starts getting national attention. And it's like, why?
Yeah,
like,
right, well, exactly.
It's because we need to distract from Iran, and we did Iran to distract from Epstein, and we did Epstein to distract from this, and it's like this never-ending Crazy Eddie game, where there's so many forms of compartmentalization that it's just going to be, unless you are like on the inside of the fucking inside, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're just making something that as I'm saying it out loud, it's like, all right, like this kind of makes sense, but we're not insiders, so we don't know what the innermost thing is, and we don't have access to it. So we can only come up with a speculative theoretical framework instead of a true roadmap of how to get rid of it or dismantle it. And as long as all they need is a quick heads up for Crazy Eddie to move inventory from one place to another, and the game just keeps on going. But that's just Crazy Eddie. That was just this little fucking nobody company, not like this world oligarch empire of, banks, offshore, Cayman Island, whatever, the Switzerland, Federal Reserve, all this shit, and then the private banks, and then you create a giant corporate global multinational system to, you know what I'm saying? It's so compartmental. Like, it's like good fucking luck. But that's why if we had like some aliens or, whatever, some god or correct answer machine where we could be like, who truly sits atop the pyramid of power with no vagueness? I want names, addresses, account numbers, you know what I'm saying? And you get all that information ahead of time so that you do it, and it has to be you have to be so small time and under the radar that they can never see you coming. Like Luke Skywalker, you know, like Arya Stark, killing the night, the whatever, the night king, and just, in Game of Thrones, like Arya Stark, the little girl who, went through, her family got killed, and on the run she somehow finds her way in some secret society cult that teaches you how to be an assassin, like the Black Hand or whatever, and then she learns how to be an assassin and a killer, and all the shit, and the Night King will never see her coming because the Night King is focusing on all these big bad warriors, not this little girl,
Yeah.
um so yeah, I'm just trying to lay out some of the broad strokes of hopefully one day someone will hear this and understand it, whereas we're old fogies, who have kids, and so there's only so far we're willing to, right? Because once you have kids, it's like, fuck, right? Like,
What that you care? It's like you care more about the world.
or more like there's only so far you're willing to go.
Right, absolutely right. Yeah,
Right.
I'm trying to go home to my son. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I've got to make sure this child grows up. And it's like, whereas if you and I didn't have kids, I'm not saying that we'd be like dedicating our lives to this, but we'd have less stopping us from it.
Of course. We're doing a daily podcast, god damn it.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my wow. Well, and I gotta go. I got people showing up for a jam here soon.
Okay.
Man.
Okay.
It flew by as usual.
I know.
Holy crap.
Like always.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my gosh.
Great talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too. I'll talk to you later. Talk to you next time. I'll post this later on today.
All right. Awesome, man.
All righty. See you next time.
I'll see you next time, buddy.
Bye.
Later, gone.